Good. Well, okay. Well, I started out tonight with rehearsed this thing several times, but now I have to introduce these people here who used to live next door to me and worked for me for many years. They're part of my groupies, as opposed to guppies, but groupies. Okay. And where's Tricia Price's sister?
Right here.
Oh, see, no, she has got octopus earrings on. Look at that. I'm impressed. I'm thinking about having my ears pierced. Okay, well, fine. All right. But we'll get that behind us. I got a lot of things I get on my mind I got to talk about. But what? I'm glad all these people came. But the question is, why? I mean, you're going to hear about an octopus. An octopus is not going to have much impact on your day-to-day living here in Westminster, Canterbury. So why in the world would you want to even know about an octopus?
It's your reputation.
My reputation, as opposed to the octopus. I don't know whether that's a compliment or not. Okay. So, yeah, where was I now? Oh, yeah, okay. To hear about the octopus, and why would you even want to hear about an octopus? It doesn't have any real impact on your day-to-day living, I don't think, around here. I haven't seen any down in the fish pond next to the nature trail. Is there anything practical that is good about an octopus? Well, it's hard to identify anything that's particularly practical about them, I suppose. One thing is that they are a part of seafood. Say they do feed people, and that's important. It's important for the seafood and the restaurant industry and that sort of thing. So they support that, I suppose. But what other good they are? I haven't seen one here on the menu, at least not yet. They are, I talked to a resident who's way up in his 90s apparently, and he told me, since he's been in Lynchburg since the beginning of time, that octopus was served at one point at the Piedmont Club. Those of you who remember the Piedmont Club. So octopus has been around. I don't think dining is looking at it very closely to get anything here.
We'll take that up.
Oh, here's the chair of the dining committee.
It's an imperative.
We'll put it on the list for the next, you put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
You want to come to listen?
No.
No.
So no, it's not. It hasn't been on so far, not on dining here yet. But it is around the world. It is on menus and that sort of thing. Debbie here was in Croatia, wasn't it? And they served octopus in Croatia as an entree, and it was the whole thing. The whole thing on a plate. On a plate. It had eyes, but it didn't look at you. So the whole thing was on the plate. So that it has some contribution to society, I suppose, but not a whole lot. So why would you want to talk about it? Well, it doesn't have to have any practical impact on us all to be interested in things like this, because it's kind of fun, at least in my opinion, to be interested in nature and what's going on out there and things of that sort. And we know a lot more about it now because we have all these instruments now that can measure all sorts of things we couldn't measure before. So you know more and more and more about an octopus. So there are people out there who become very interested in it. The octopus has become very popular to talk about these days. It's very popular in the newspapers and in magazines and all that kind of thing. And there are people who study them now in very great detail, who take care of them in aquariums and that sort of thing. And these people have now come to call themselves, oh, you know what? You gotta turn it on. Imagine that. They call themselves the cult of the octopus. So now him trying to convince you to become part of the cult of the octopus, and it makes your lights get dark in here. Okay, the cult of the octopus. So a lot of people out there talking about this and studying it and that sort of thing. So before we go too far into this, we got to get past one thing first. The plural of octopus is octopuses, not octopi. And it's not obscene. So we got to get past that. But the linguist will tell you that the word octopus is Greek. And therefore the plural of a Greek word would be es. Pi is Latin. So octopi is incorrect. So throughout the rest of this, we're going to talk about octopuses. And if that disturbs you, then it's time to leave now. Okay. Okay. So we got that far. Okay. Now the octopuses have been misunderstood. They have been felt to be a sea monster. And now if you look at some of these shows on TV, they'll have a show about the Kraken, it's called. Some sea monster that comes up and it wraps itself around sailing ships and sinks them. And this is a wood cutting from, I don't know, 16th, 17th, 18th century, something like that. It depicted the Kraken coming out and attacking a sailing ship, drowning everybody. And it's in the shape of an octopus. Now, that octopus has not been a sea monster, and a former neighbor has been diving with an octopus. So she'll tell you it didn't kill her. She's here. It didn't even take her, what do you call that? The regulator off. The regulator off, so she didn't drown, any of those things. So an octopus is not a sea monster, and it is not the Kraken. It's just an 8-armed animal. It's over. Got to get past that. Now, the octopus has arrived because it's now a part of a pop culture. And so on the left was one of the early Spider-Man comics, and it had a villain in that comic book called Dr. Octopus. So you see a picture of that on the left there. But now we're past, Spider-Man comics, we're at Marvel comics. And the Marvel comic also has a Dr. Octopus, but it looks more modern and that sort of thing. Did you hear that?
Don't repeat.
Not everybody did. Okay, I won't repeat it. But you'll notice that the depiction in the pop culture in these comic things, they only have 4 arms. And an octopus has 8 arms. So they're really screwed it up. It's still in pop culture, which is very important because the octopus has arrived now in pop culture. So now we'll get past all that and talk about the octopuses. So people who take care of these things in aquariums and that sort of thing say that they're their friends. Now, so a lot of people would say you don't want to call them friends because that attributes human characteristics to an animal. Anthropomorphism. That's just a big word. I thought I'd throw it in because it impresses you. So, but they do really believe, these people who take care of them every day, that they do form their friends. And there's some evidence that actually would support that. Because as the keeper approaches the tank, the octopus will rise to the surface and they feel like it greets you. It comes out to interact with you. And the octopus will then explore the keeper's body with its arms, or a visitor, or whoever that approaches the tank.
So the arms come out of the water too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For the left.
Yeah. So it actually explores you. And so the keepers feel like this is a sign that they're a friend. And the octopus will also roll over for a belly scratch. Reminds you of your dog. When the dog comes home, or you come home and meet the dog gets all excited, rolls over and wants his stomach scratched. Well, the octopus does the same thing. So that would suggest that the octopus does greet its keeper and likes its keeper, that kind of thing. But there's always a but. Now, is this behavior just because the keeper is the person who brings them food? Or is it something deeper than that? Now, with your dog, you would think it's bound to be something deeper than that. On the other hand, maybe the dog doesn't care about you at all it just wants something to eat. Now, we think it's keep deeper, and it probably is, but nevertheless, does the octopus have those deeper feelings? Well, they think they do. So, is it food or is it something deeper? So, as a result of all of that, octopuses are now being kept as pets. Now, is this a good idea? Well, a lot of people are shaking their heads no, and a lot of people say, no, it's not a good idea to make any kind of wild animal a pet. And in some states, Maine for example, it's illegal to have a wild animal as a pet. So it may not be a good idea to have a wild animal as a pet. But nevertheless, octopuses are being kept as pets. Now they're kind of high maintenance. They require a saltwater tank with a recirculating pump. And octopus food is not readily available down at your local pet store.
What do they eat?
Other marine animals. We'll talk about that later too. And you have to keep the tank lid very tight because the octopus likes to climb out of it and get out of it or run across the floor, things of that sort. So you have to keep a tight lid. What?
What do they eat?
They eat other marine animals. And we'll talk about that later because I'll talk about their food. Okay. So you have to be careful because if they escape and get down on the floor, if you don't get it back in the tank quickly, they'll die. And frequently what happens is in the aquarium world is they get out during the night and then they're on the floor the next morning and they're no longer with us. So you have to keep the lid on it very tight. If they do get out during the day and you try to catch them, they run away. They're very quick on those arms. They run on their arms. Actually, it kind of reminds you of your cat. Because you know that when you get the cat carrier out, the cat knows something is up. And it will go crawl under the bed. And then the bed's about that high off the floor. And old people can get down on the floor anyway, but they can't get under the bed, that's for sure. So the cat's hiding under the bed. Well, the octopus does the same sort of thing. It runs away. They're very hard to catch. The other thing is you may not want to get too attached to your octopus because the longest lived octopus only lives 2 to 3 years. Some will live a lot less than that. But if they're, you get attached to it like you do your dog, you wouldn't like it to live longer than 2 or 3 years. So that's a problem. So they have been kept as pets. Now speaking of pets, you remember if you lived here any length of time that the pet policy and things of that sort has been going on since the beginning of time here too. We had a new pet policy a few years ago. So the problem has been, or maybe not a problem is too strong a word, but the difficulty is, the pets, especially the dogs, sometimes the cat, others, will leave presents around. Little poop presents. On the walkways, in the hallways, in here, in the, yeah, well, wait a minute. Who made you part of this talk? Well, I'm not surprised. All right, we'll get to that. So, yeah, so pet policy. I've been dealing with pets. And recently, where is Barbara Rogers? Oh, Barbara's dog has appeared in the elevator. So her dog is famous now. It's been in the elevator. And it was again a plea for people to pick up after their pet and not leave them, and have their deposits in the floor and all that kind of stuff. And then, if you were at last month's confab, the first thing that Sean brought up about in his presentation was another plea to please do not let your pet go around without picking up after it. Now that's very important because I tell you this story. Some years ago, I was going through the lobby, it was getting a little late at night, and there was this brown deposit on the floor. So I said it would be my civic duty to notify the front desk. So I notified the front desk, and the security guy says, "Oh my God, I have got to get that up right away." I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Because the guy who delivers the newspapers delivers delivers the newspapers barefooted. And it ruins his day if he steps in the dog food. And even with shoes, it's not really a great day for you. But barefooted, it's even worse. So it's the dog droppings or the cat or whatever it might be is not an emergency, but it certainly has some urgency, at least to the staff. Now, you know, emergencies or various things around town have codes attached to colors. For a cardiac arrest in the hospital, it was code blue. But it you know, the Homeland Security of whatever it is has green, yellow, and red, you know, codes of sorts. And there's some codes around here. Well, okay, Sean was making his presentation, and he talked about code brown. Well, you know what that is? And the staff has begun to call it code brown when they, you know, find a little dog deposit in the reflex. So the plea here then is, if you're thinking about getting another pet, you know, think about Octopus. An octopus will not leave a code brown. Now, it's high maintenance, but it will not leave a code brown. So if you get a new pet, be sure you tell Sean that you've got an octopus and it will not leave a code brown. So, okay, we can leave that topic now. And what's next? Oh, octopuses are supposed to have moods. You know, the keepers feel they have moods. And so I put these cartoons in there about happy, sad, and angry. And they're supposed to have these kind of moods their keepers think. Now again, as people will say, well, you don't want to attribute human characteristics to an animal. So do they really have these moods? Well, there's some evidence that might support that. But first, in humans, if you present things to them and measure brain waves and things in the head, it will show that when you are happy, sad, or angry, it will activate certain parts of your brain. Now, there's some evidence to support that in animals as well, not necessarily an octopus, but an animal. They've studied animals that show that when they get angry or what appear to be anger or sad or whatever, parts of their brain are activated, neurotransmitters are generated, and that sort of thing. So there's some evidence out there that suggests that very possibly an octopus could have moods and feel happy, sad, and angry. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So they have moods. So I put these guys in there because they're really interesting looking characters. Now the guy in the upper left looks pretty ugly, but that's very important, and we'll come back to that later, for the octopus to look like that. The guy on the right is bright red. I mean, that's a bright red, attractive looking octopus. And the one on the lower left is kind of dull looking. He's kind of beigey brown, whatever. But it's not bad color. There's bright yellow with blue spots. We'll come back to that too. So, you know, they're not bad looking animals. And here's their keepers thing. Now that's a nice looking octopus. Wouldn't you agree with that? It's nice blue. It has little white spots, and its suckers are a contrasting color. It kind of goes well with blue. You know. And so the keepers would say that if it's a male, he's really handsome. If it's female, she's beautiful. Or, in the vernacular these days, the female would be hot. So they think they're nice looking things, and they are. They have some really nice colors to them, that sort of thing. So handsome and beautiful. So now we go to more basic things about an octopus. Now first, that quote up there is from one of the keepers of these guys, and they refer to them as a master of disguise, a cunning escape artist, and a selfless parent. And we will come back to that later and look at all those things. But there's the basic anatomy in the middle. So they have an eye, two of them. That thing that's called a funnel is also called a siphon. That's important later. The visceral hump is like the head and nose of the animal. And that's important because other brain and other organs are in there that are important. And it has 8 arms, obviously. It has suckers on those arms, which are very important for them. The arms have a web between the arms, and that's actually where the mouth is. So that's very important. So the mouth is in the armpit. Okay. That's kind of disconcerting, isn't it? Okay, so those are some basic anatomy and basic facts about these things. So we'll look at the genus. There are 300 species that have been identified so far. And some of these species can live to a depth of 23,000 feet. Now that's pretty impressive because our submarines they'd be crushed at a lot less than that. Now you have to have a special submersible vehicle to go way down, and we had one that got crushed here recently. But there are that are very special and very strongly made so that the water column can't crush them. So going down to 3,000 feet is pretty remarkable. Now, an octopus has 3 hearts. 2 of them pump blood to the gills. They have gills like a fish. They extract oxygen from the water. 1 pumps blood to the rest of the body. But the blood is blue. On the right over there is a hand with some octopus blood on it, and it's very dark blue. The reason for that is that the molecule that carries oxygen in an octopus has copper in it. Our blood is red, which is hemoglobin, because it has iron in it, and that makes our blood red. So it's true blue blood. So an octopus is an invertebrate. It has no bones, and the body is 90% muscle. So perhaps that's why it makes good seafood, because the whole animal almost is a steak. Think about it. Now, the arm muscles run both the length and around the arm, which allows the arm to move in all kinds of directions. The arm muscles can shorten, depending on the species, by 50 to 70%, so they can make them real long or real short. And the arm muscles can resist a pull of up to 4,000 pounds, which means that an octopus in some species can lift an object that would weigh 4,000 pounds, which is really pretty impressive. So, it also, if it loses one of those arms, it can regenerate an arm. Now that's very handy to have. If they get attacked and something pulls its arm off, it just makes another one. So that's really nice to have. So, it can regenerate those arm muscles. The eyes. They have 2 eyes. One is dominant. They have a 360-degree field of vision, so they can see all the way around themselves. That siphon there is circled in red. It can shoot a jet of water through the siphon, and that's how they move in the water. But they also can walk on their arms, so they can move in 2 ways. Now, food. Somebody's asking about food. Octopus will eat any other marine animal, even sharks. It has been found to eat a shark. But they do have favorites. Now, when they live in an aquarium, they feed them a favorite, and it's some little marine animal that I forgot what the name of it is, but they do have favorites. The suckers are what propel the food to the mouth. The suckers are like a conveyor belt, and they put the food on the end of the arm, and the suckers then move it up and deposit it in the mouth. And the mouth that you're talking about is in the armpit. So, apparently they don't need deodorant. Okay. Food. So what size are they? The largest species is called the giant Pacific octopus. The largest octopus ever documented was a giant Pacific that weighed 600 pounds and had an arm span of 30 feet. That's big. Now this guy is a fisherman. He's holding a big giant Pacific octopus. It's not 600 pounds, but he's holding it up, and it's just about as long as he is tall. So they can be very big. The smallest octopus is less than an inch long, and at full growth, it's less than an inch and can weigh less than a raisin. So there's a whole spectrum of size and weight and that type of thing. So, we're going to talk about the female and then the male. So the female is much larger than the male, has heavy webbing between its arms. It can produce hundreds of thousands of eggs. The female can store sperm in her body for weeks to months, depending on the species, and then call upon those sperm anytime they feel the need to fertilize their eggs. The octopus is a very good mother. She cares for her eggs and cleans them frequently and protects them from predators. Now on the picture on the right is a female octopus guarding her eggs. And what the female does is attach them to wherever they're home, they make their home, attach them to the ceiling or the wall or whatever, and then they sit there and they guard them, and every so often they'll blow water through them and keep them clean. So they take very good care of them. Unfortunately for the female, she dies after the eggs mature and hatch. It's just kind of too bad. But then we'll look at the male. Even harder for the male. The male is much smaller than the female. And the male has a specialized arm that doesn't produce sperm. Actually, the testes are, we'll look at that in a minute. The testes are in the head. They produce the sperm, but that arm carries the sperm to the female. So, the male, unfortunately, those of us who are male kind of get squeamish about this. But after mating, the female may eat the male. Now, that doesn't make it better. And
Birth control.
You want to move to the back?
I had to say it.
I know, you have to. I have to say that. So the male will die, if it's not eaten by the female, it'll die shortly after mating too. So it's kind of sad on the left and it's angry as it dickens on the right. It's very disconcerting for a male. It's not a good day for the male. So now that we're talking about the male and female, we've got to talk about mating. So we're going to talk about octopus sex. So if you're a little uncomfortable talking about sex, you better shut your eyes and cover your ears now, because we're going to talk about octopus sex. So what is mating all about? Okay, maybe I need my pointer. So I'll get my pointer. So that the keepers think that they think the parent octopus really enjoy this, so there's a happy octopus over here. So it,
Doesn't know what's coming.
well, exactly. Oh, I gotta let it go. Okay. All right. So over here is the male. It's depicted larger than the female. That's not the case. The male is smaller than the female. But this is the male over here, and the testes are up here, and it's making sperm. And it sends the sperm down here, and this specialized arm collects the sperm and carries them over, and that arm is inserted into that funnel or siphon of the female, extended up to the nose of the female where the ovaries are. So then the sperm are deposited up here where the ovaries are, and so you get the fertilization of the eggs. But the female can leave them up here and call on the sperm anytime that she stores up here and use them whenever she needs it. So that's mating. All right, what happens after mating? Well, you've got to have birth in order to have a little octopuses. They got to be born. So what is that all about? So the embryo's on the left, that's an egg with a little octopus growing inside of it. It's only got 4 arms right now, but it grows up and gets to look like a full-grown octopus, except it's smaller. And then there's delivery. It comes out of the egg into the water, and then on the right is the newborn. Swims away. So that's how it goes: an embryo, a delivery, and a newborn. So that's the birth process. So we'll leave all that now and go to what other things the octopus can do. Now their keepers call them contortionists. It turns out they can contort their body to look like any other marine animal, including sharks. And this way they can defend themselves, because they'll look like a shark and some predator will leave them alone because they look like a shark. They also can squeeze their large body into tiny spaces. And there's some pictures about that on the right. I think that's probably a coconut shell. And the octopus has made it its home. And on the lower right is some discarded cups. They're down the ocean floor, and the octopus will squeeze into those things and make it their home. In that case, they also have shells, and they kind of make a door with the shells. So, yes, sir.
When are their predators? What goes after an octopus?
Very little.
Because they've got more power.
Yeah, they have predators, and honestly, I don't know what their major predator might be. Sharks maybe, but they can also look like a shark, so they can, so, I don't know. I've been careful about messing with them, huh? Okay. So, they can squeeze into tiny spaces. And in this case, what they did was they put the octopus in a box, wooden box, and put it on the floor of this tank. But the box had a crack in it that was 2 inches wide and 6 inches long. And that 7-foot octopus was able to crawl through that crack and get out of the box. So they can really get in small spaces. On another occasion, they found the octopus had squeezed itself into a 1/2-inch pipe that was part of the recirculating system in the tank. And so it plugged it up. And so by the next morning when they all came in, the floor was flooded with water because the octopus had plugged up the pipes. Apparently it survived that. They got there soon enough. And it was still in the tank because the intake for the circulating system was in the tank, and it just plugged itself in there. So it flooded the floor. Okay. Now they have colors, patterns, and textures. And what did you say, Jay, that the octopus skin was kind of...
No, it's like when you touch them, it feels like you're putting your hand into talcum powder. It's just that soft and giving.
So it's
Yes,
very,
it's
very
the
soft.
softest thing you can touch.
See that? You know,
Don't eat them.
if I just don't come and do this talk, I bring people with me that know about something. So, colors, patterns, and textures to the skin. And that's that thing again, and it's turned itself that ugly looking pattern. So they can actually change their color, change the pattern, change their texture in a tiny fraction of a second. So it can just almost instantly turn into something that looks completely different. And in this case, the octopus made its skin look like its background. It's like a chameleon lizard, and so it can blend into its background, and it helps it hide from its predators. And it protects itself that way. Now the colors also have meaning. At least the keepers think that the colors have meaning. They think when the octopus is calm, it has that light color, that light tannish color. And in some cases, the octopus will turn almost pure white if it's calm, they think. Now, if it gets excited, it'll turn bright red. And we'll skip the next one, the yellow one. And that's the one that's hiding over there. It changes the pattern and texture. Now, the yellow one is, oddly enough, is called the blue spot octopus. And that's a sign, at least to us, that it's poisonous. So it does have some meaning, at least to us. And whether it's telling other creatures in the ocean that it's poisonous, it may be the case. I don't know. So they do have meaning. The colors have meaning. They also have very many colors. There's a yellow one again, that nice blue, handsome one. The red one. The beigey one, that color.
So when it says it's poisonous, does that mean if one of its tentacles gets on your skin?
Yeah,
it's poison?
yeah, I don't think they bite
Yeah.
as much as they secrete stuff. Or,
Yeah.
Really, their mouth is in their armpit, so.
Do you know that certain species are poisonous and others aren't?
Yes, yeah. And that one happens to be one that's well known to be poison. The yellow one was the blue spot. Now the others don't appear to be because they can crawl all over you and not give you any problem. So they have many colors. Okay, and I put this one in because this guy's looking good. Look at that. I mean, that is a blue hosta.
He's a dude.
Hosta. See, that's my. I grow a lot of hostas. That's a blue octopus. And it's and it has that nice contrasting white color to the suckers and all. So it's really blue. So I couldn't resist putting that one in here. Very blue. Now about their homes, they saw the one that made its home in the coconut shell. And then the ones in the middle of it adopted some other kind of cups and little doors were making it like. This one's in a bigger cup. This one down here is in a clamshell. It's poking its head out at the clamshell. So they have various homes. And that's where the female then will attach her eggs to the inside their home. And they can make them in the cracks and crevices on the ocean floor too, in the rocks and so on. They don't have to have stuff like this. So, they can also learn stuff. They're very smart. So these two pictures show an octopus which has learned to navigate a maze. They can be taught to navigate the maze. And there's a food reward at the end of the maze. Like most animals, you give them food in order to reward them for doing an activity or whatever. And so they can train them then to search for the food and make their way through the maze. And this other study was done. They had 3 boxes. I told you earlier they put the animal in a box and put it on the floor of its tank. Well, it soon learned to lift the lid and get out of that box. So then they said, well, put a latch on the lid, and the octopus could learn to lift the latch up and then climb out of the box. And then they made it even harder, is they put 3 different kinds of latches on, all of which had a different unlatch mechanism, and the octopus would learn to unlatch all 3 different things and get out of the box.
Very smart.
So it thinks out of the box.
Is there a specific place in the world, in the United States, where they're doing that kind of research?
Oh, there's a lot of places, I don't know the names of it, but a lot of people are studying these things. So they're doing a lot of stuff we're gonna learn about.
Joe, can you repeat questions that they give you for the people in the back?
Sure, I sure can. What was your question? If I can remember it, I give it.
Is there a specific place where they do research?
Is there a specific place where they do research? And the answer is a lot of places. I don't know that I saw a specific place that was more likely than another. But people study marine animals and aquariums and that sort of thing. So they clean up after themselves. I think this is very interesting. They don't leave their food scraps in their home. They stack them up in a pile, a very neat pile, outside the home. So they have sort of a garbage dump outside of their house. They can recognize humans. We talked about that. I think they can recognize their keepers and other people who come to visit them. They recognize. And when they do, they will present themselves, as we talked about, be touched, and then they'll touch their keepers and visitors and put their tentacles all over them and that kind of thing. But they also think that their keepers think that they can recognize humans that they do not like and react to those that they do not like. Now again, this is attributing human characteristics to an animal, and maybe that's not right. But it does seem reproducible, that if that person comes up repeatedly, maybe weeks or months apart, the octopus will have the same response to that person that it did weeks or months ago. And if they don't like you, they will blow water through that siphon tube and drench them. I mean, absolutely drench them with water. So
Thanks for not doing that.
I'm gonna bring one and have them demonstrate to you. You're getting less and less likable all the time. So, they drench unlikables with their siphon. Okay, so there's that siphon that they're blowing water through. So, the pain is almost over. So, conclusions. Well, the first one we got to talk about, of course, is it's octopuses, not octopi. And their keepers say they're colorful and handsome and contortionist and misunderstood and friendly. Smart, curious, clever, attentive parents. They do take care of their eggs, and full of personality. So that's a very brief summary of a book and all sorts of other stuff about octopuses. So I will entertain any questions as long as they don't come from over there.